Come on, 49er faithful, let's get it.
Because it's 49er mind.
We gotta do this one time for the Empire.
It's 49er mind. It's 49er mind.
We gotta get that brick by brick real quick.
49er mind.
Yeah. Yo, we can't listen to them haters, man.
49er mind.
We from the Bay.
49er mind.
We them San Francisco 49ers.
49er mind.
We got that red and gold blood inside us.
49er mind.
Oh yeah, freak out, yeah, I'm looking right into the video scope, and this is Macho Man, #1 Macho Man impersonator, past, present, future, yeah, and I'm here to tell you, you are watching 49er Minded with Bashar, yeah, the cream of the crop, dig it?
What is up, everybody? Welcome to a special Mother's Day edition of 49er Minded. Shout out to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day. Obviously, my mom and my sister's a mother, and everybody out there in this world that's a mother. This is your day. So happy Mother's Day. Wanted to get that out of the way really quick. Wanted to say get some shout outs to some people in the chat. We got Mariah, 49er Faithful Lee from 49er Faithful Lee podcast. She runs that over with TL. And she's always supporting and awesome. I'm gonna be on their show pretty soon. I'm gonna be on the show pretty soon. So sometime this week. So we're gonna make it happen. And she said, "Who's going to the game? What's good? What's good?" We have Corey, the sports fanatic, says, "What's up, Bash?" He's been on here before, been on this show. Cinnamon Kiss says, "Hey, Mariah." And then next, I'm really hyped up about this guest because this guest is, he's taken the fantasy football world by storm. And on top of that, he just loves talking Niners. So you guys probably already know who this guy is, but if you don't, I have to bring him on right now. His name is Smitty. What is up, Smitty? How's it going?
What's up, Bash? How you doing, pal?
Doing awesome, man. I really appreciate this opportunity. I know we've talked a lot on the Twitter Spaces, and I go way back with Raj, and you have that Raj connection with our SF 49ers on Instagram. You guys were going live all the time, and I had no idea who you were at one point, but Raj was always talking you up, and I was like, okay. And then I see that you're this big-time fantasy football guy, so it's just great to have you on, and just, always good to talk football with you because we always talk in the Spaces every once in a blue moon, so we get up on there,
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, no, I like, I do get put in a box, like, here's a fantasy guy, and a lot of if I ever see negative, a lot of people are so gracious and kind on the internet, that. But occasionally you come across a negative hater or something. And a lot of people put me in a box like, you're only fantasy. You can't talk about this. Or if I say this player is better than that player, usually someone's comeback when they don't agree with me is like, well, not everything's fantasy. Like I'm 50% NFL. I'm not just fantasy football. My show is called the Fantasy Football Show, but I literally break news, talk about trade, I'm talking NFL 365 24/7, and it just so happens that I have a hardcore emphasis on fantasy football. But believe it or not, Bash, those things go hand in hand almost 98% of the time. You don't traditionally have somebody that's a really good fantasy football producer that isn't a good NFL player. The only example I could give you would be like a Jalen Hurts being really good in fantasy football, but being very questionable in people's minds as a quarterback. Like you come across one or two of those players every 40 or 50 players, but it gives you a real nice, I think, baseline in terms of the predicting business and the predicting game, because a lot of people look at football from what are we seeing right now? What's on the field right now? What's Trey Lance look like? Hey, let me tell you what Trey Lance is going to do because of what he did last year. I'm in the frame of mind, like, I don't care so much about that. It factors into my evaluation process, but I'm here to try and predict what Trey's going to do this coming season. So it rubs people the wrong way, but that's kind of how I approach things.
Hey, it's all, if you have a unique perspective on things, the more the merrier. That's awesome. I appreciate that. We have 49ers First Takes here. Aaron from 49ers First Takes has his own channel. Awesome dude. Collabed with him a few times. Says, "What's up, Bash?" And we got Mr. I can't say his name the real way, but D Nasty says, "What's up, faithful?" So yeah, oh, Poppy Pablo's here too. What's up, Poppy Pablo says Niners. Yeah, I want everybody to see this video really quick of you, because you do all kinds of cool things on your Instagram, on your Twitter, on your social media. You just got it all covered. You got your YouTube channel, and you actually have 2 YouTube channels, which is the QUADBOX. And for those of you that aren't subscribed to this guy on YouTube, in the description box of this video, I have all the links to the social media. It's 49er Show QUADBOX with Raj, CMAC, and VLAD. They tear shit up over there. They're awesome. But he's got his fantasy football show on there where he again, like you said, he covers all of the NFL and NFL news and fantasy. So it's just everything all wrapped in one. It's awesome. And he's been doing this for a long, long time. Really quick, I want to play that little video, that little Trey Lance video of yours. And we'll run that really quick right now, because this is one of my personal favorites. I like to mess around and do little goofy songs, and once I think you raised the bar with that song.
Yeah, real quick, like you either love it or you hate it. I am very much into comedy relief as well, and so this tends to this is a banger to some people and an absolute travesty to other people. So if you're a Niner fan, I think you're gonna like it.
Oh yeah, hey man. There's people out there that didn't like Beethoven, so what can you do? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and run this song really, really quick and get a kick out of it. It's got all kinds of mixed messages, and it's cool. I think it's funny and unique and creative. Here we go.
Say Trey's name. Say his name. You're damn right.
A tutty and 50 on the ground each game, 'cause your mama's gonna scream Trey's name. He's Trey. He's Trey. He's Trey. The Niners gonna make you pay. Bringing Trey to the motherfucking bay. A rushing touchdown every game. Your mama's gonna scream his name. The Niners gonna make you pay. Bringing Trey to the bay.
Say Trey's name.
Okay.
Say his name. You're damn right.
Oh, that video. I love it, man. I love it. I love it. We either made a bunch of people laugh or you made a bunch of people cry.
The crazy part is how much you love this, and you don't even watch The Sopranos, right?
Well, I watch
the Breaking Bad.
I love The Sopranos. People liken me to Tony Soprano sometimes. But I never watched Breaking Bad, and I told you one of my friends was like a reoccurring actor on that show. Even so,
that's crazy that you love it so much, and you don't even like the best part about that is that Walter White, one of the most loved villain characters of all time in TV, was the star of that through a face app that I use. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I just think it's catchy, it's funny, it's everything, and it makes football sense. Hey, why not?
Well, we'll do it. We'll do another one once Trey actually explodes. But
I'm down to collab on a jam, on a banger, feature banger.
Let's talk Trey. Let's talk
Trey. Let's talk Trey. So we'll talk about the draft too. Don't get me wrong, I titled that the video, but it's just so funny that pretty much every sign is pointing towards Trey being the starting quarterback, but just for the simple fact that Jimmy's name is still on the roster under contract, it's like the last thread that all the Jimmy guys are holding on to. Oh, he's gonna be the starting quarterback because he's still on the roster. And if any of you guys saw that that promo video the 49ers put out that was pretty much advertising the Mexico game in Mexico versus the Arizona Cardinals, you see Trey Lance on there. You don't see Jimmy G. But go right ahead, my friend, and see what you got to say about Trey.
Yeah, I mean, let's get a couple things straight. Like, number one, Jimmy's injured right now. Number two, the team's moving on to practice and prep for 2022. Blocking for Trey Lance alone is a whole different, ball game than blocking for Jimmy G. So if you're going to prep and walk into the early part of the offseason and a big chunk of the offseason with only Trey Lance under center, you know for a fact that he's the starter. He's walking in as the starter. Now, the only thing that can happen, which won't happen, I assure you, because this scouting is what I do for a living, and Trey's the guy. But if Trey can't fend off and hold off Jimmy G from coming in 11th hour after he can finally throw the ball And if Trey can't hold him off after they've already started practicing blocking, changing the offense, sculpting it for Trey, then Trey's not the guy. Trey's the guy. Trey's going to be absolute fire. He's entering his sophomore season. Joe Burrow just got through his sophomore season. Herbert exploded in this past season, which was his sophomore season. And I don't want to hear that Trey's a rookie. He's not a rookie. He played less games. He didn't play 10 like Burrow did. I think Burrow played 10 and tore his ACL. But it's crazy that people actually think he's a rookie. They say things like disrespectful things like, well, he's going to have to learn to read defense. Like, where did they watch football at all last year? Yeah, he struggled here and there. What rookie quarterback doesn't have ups and downs? How many times did you say to yourself when Burrow was out there, God, the Bengals looked awful as a rookie. He made a bunch of mistakes there, but man, he's got it. You can tell Burrow has it, and it's going to take him that second year. And Burrow walked in with a lesser situation than Trey Lance is walking into for his sophomore year. And people might have foggy memories of that. I predicted the Bengals to win the division and to be a deep playoff team. People laughed at it, Bash. People laughed at it. Now everybody in hindsight's always 50-50 or 20-20 when really you look at somebody and they treat it like it's 50-50. and it's crazy because now everyone thinks that Burrow had this path that was paved for him. It was very, very clear. It was smooth sailing. But Burrow was recovering from an ACL tear. Burrow was still trying to get to the point where he was like playing on that high level. Trey's walking into a better situation. Trey, in my opinion, is more polished than really Burrow in some ways, because of how good he is in terms of running the ball, how good he is in terms of throwing a deep ball, improvising, coming out of college with, I know, lesser competition, but coming out of college with 28 passing touchdowns, 0 INTs, 14 rushing touchdowns. Jerry Rice Award winner, Walter Payton Award winner. This dude overcame a potential unseating because he was supposed to be the guy. Then the transfer came in and was supposed to take his job, and he didn't. So similar situation. He's used to that. This Jimmy G situation won't affect him as bad as people think. He's polished, man. I don't care if his accuracy needs to be worked on a little bit. He has looked really good when he's been on the field. He didn't look like a rookie. And not to mention, he won his last game he started with playoff implications against a pretty tough team at the time at that point in the season, because the Texans just knocked off the Bengals. They weren't that easy to just roll over. And so he had a real nice victory there, went toe-to-toe with the Cardinals, which is technically my team, Bash, because I'm in Arizona. I'm a Cardinal fan. I'm on Niner shows. I'm a Niner supporter, but I am a Cardinal fan first. And the Cardinals were the toughest team in football through that point in the season. And the Cardinals went toe-to-toe with the Cardinals. Trey looked really, really good. And yeah, he struggled a little bit in the first half, but I don't see what other people see. I see a guy that is ready to take a huge step forward.
I'm totally with you on that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a 49er fan. I love Trey Lance. It's just I've watched this guy and I see a lot of, like you mentioned the if factor earlier. I definitely see the if factor with him. And it's not just the if factor in his high ceiling. It's just that the biggest thing about him that I love the most is his work ethic and how hard he works in, works in the offseason. And I believe he has 3 QB coaches. He's always throwing to his receivers, in his own little camps that he creates. So, I just see a big upside with Trey Lance, and I'm excited just as you are. Let me see what's up to a couple of people in here. There's a little skirmish in the chat. The chat always has some funny stuff. We got Prius Game here. He is the biggest Jimmy G supporter that I know. He says, you turds have been saying bye to Jimmy, but yeah, he's still here. LOL, you clowns don't know football. Alrighty then. We got Kobe for Life says, we all know who the real clown is. Welcome to the channel. I'm not sure if I know you, but what's up, dude? The Cardinal Rule. What's up, man? Big Cardinal YouTuber. Check out his channel if you want to hear somebody talk about Cardinals football. And
hey, man,
he really
I'm his guy.
I'm
in Arizona here, and
we
got a whole lot to talk about on that front. The Hollywood Brown situation.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this about your QB, Kyler Murray. How do you think that's going to play out? Before we get into the more Niner talk.
I think Hollywood was. I mean, the Cardinals must have known that Hopkins was, going to be looking at that suspension. So They made a good move. At the time, I didn't like it because I thought, okay, Hopkins is there. Why are they getting rid of youth to go get a guy like Hollywood, have to pay him more? But they obviously knew what was going on. And if you think about it and step back, a lot of people are just like, oh, the Cardinals are done. Cardinals are done. They just lost Hopkins. You would trade Hopkins for Hollywood probably, or most people would. And you got to kind of look at it from that perspective. Yeah, Hopkins has gone for 6 games, but Hollywood Brown's taking his spot. The offense coming into 2022 should be better than it was in 2021, to be frank, because once Hopkins comes back, you'll have more firepower. And until then, look, Hollywood's a fine replacement for Hopkins, who was hurt and wasn't playing out of his mind anyway. You got Rondell Morris taking a step forward. We brought Connor back. I really like the Cardinals' chances, and I think Kyler Murray has been staying quiet, keeping his head down. He's turned things around. I was really critical on Kyler. I don't know if you saw a lot of that, but when Kyler scrubbed his social media and started doing things different, it's different than Debo. Debo I defended more than I think anybody you'll find. I defended Debo while people are ripping him apart. When people are calling him a diva, I defended Debo probably on record more than I think you'll find anybody defended him, like to an extreme degree, like video after video, like just cranking out content, hours worth here, hours worth there, defending Debo. Debo put it all he left it all on the field. He put it all on the line, heart and soul, played 2 positions and only only paid to play 1, and then wasn't taken care of. And so I was very, very critical of the Niners organization not extending him. If he was going to be unorthodox with his style of play and do something that he wasn't being paid to do, he just did it anyway. Give me the ball. I'll take care of it. The Niners, the organization, should have been unorthodox in their signing with Debo. They should have stepped out the realm of normalcy and said, you know what, we normally do this in July and August, but let's do it for Debo now and show good faith, but created this entire mess that you could blame on Debo. But at the same time, what is he doing? Same thing everybody else does when they got 1 year left on their contract. It's par for the course. It's expected. When you got 1 year left on your deal, you negotiate. You try and get more money. Try and get the bag. It's normal. It's normal. But Kyler has 2 years left on his deal. At the time, he had 1 year, but then also the 5th year option. It's different. Not to mention, Kyler refused to go back on the field in the final play of the season. Called the team. Set out to embarrass him is what he said. The Cardinals were embarrassing him. They set him up for failure. He's often called a guy that stays to himself and is not like a team player, not motivating to his team, not vocal. There's a lot of reasons to not pay him the bag right now. And it's really, really crazy that people draw these comparisons. And I'm a Cardinal fan. You think I would defend Kyler, but I'm very objective and I can bring objectivity to the table. Kyler's situation is far different than Debo's. And Kyler's turning things around, though, and I'm feeling pretty excited about him keeping his head down. We'll see if he gets more angry again later based on putting his head down, doing the work, and still not getting the bag. The Cardinals picking up the 5th year option tells me that with the 2 years left on his deal, they'll pay him next year, not this year, and we'll see how he responds to that.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody was trying to sell me on the whole, even when Kyler started all this stuff from the very get-go, when it was at its worst, I was still telling – I was just, I knew within my heart that, this is just some off-season mess, and they'll probably eventually sort things out, and he'll probably play. And
yeah,
I'm hoping the same happens with Debo. It looks like Trey Lance was kind of stepping up on some of the tweets, and I love the fact that Trey Lance is showing some camaraderie, and he's kind of stepping up as being in a low-key kind of Twitter type of way, kind of stepping up and being a leader, and his teammates are they like him. So. All is good in that direction. So hopefully the Debo thing gets sorted out. It'd be ridiculous if it didn't.
90, like it's almost 100%. It's gonna be fine. Like he has no leverage, 0 leverage. He barely had any leverage before. He only had the leverage of creating unrest. Creating unrest so that the team felt obligated to hear offers out. And teams that tend to like, let's just solve this problem. Not worry about how much control we're giving to the player, the perceived control, like in the case of Tyreek Hill or Adams. Like everyone thinks, because you're unhappy, you're traded. That's not the case. The Niners and the Cardinals are not organizations that get, I don't want to say the Packers and the Chiefs were pushed around, but they were more apt to solve the problem and worry about their own problems. Like, what can we get? What is the value we can get? Let's see if we can move on. The Niners are very stubborn, and the Niners aren't going to let a player dictate what's going on. So Debo really didn't have much leverage at all. But now that the draft's over, the draft capital that you would acquire in a Debo trade is gone and spent, and there's no way to use it. He has no leverage whatsoever.
Exactly.
So,
Once, yeah.
And AJ Brown signing that $57 million guaranteed deal, that is the guarantee structure that you're looking at. 55 to 60 million guaranteed is what Debo's going to get. 4 years, 100 to 104 million, right around that range. Maybe they package in some incentives to help make him feel like all of this was worth it to him, and give him something to kind of fight for. And that will motivate him on the field to continue to thrive. But this thought of that he might play for 3.9 or 4 million and then try and get the money later, it's not going to happen. You're not going to walk into a season and pass up on 55 to 60 million guaranteed, which is what the Niners will offer, because now you have a baseline with the AJ Brown deal. Shares the same agent too. He's going to get that deal. If Debo turns that down and tries to go out and play for 4 million and gets hurt, he's going to get screwed. And if he tries to play hurt or play less, he's not going to get the bag next year because no one's going to think he's good enough to pay. So it's a catch-22 for him. He has to accept whatever the highest offer is, and he's got to come back as soon as he, the moment he can miss a game check or get a fine, he's back. There's no way he holds out.
Yeah, and exactly. There's no more trade options, and even and I saw the AJ Brown trade. I didn't like what the Titans got in return, just me personally. So, I wanted a bit more, capital in return, but it is what it is. We didn't do the trade, and it looks like Debo's sticking around. So there was a draft, and the 49ers stayed put at 61. When they made that selection with Drake Jackson, did you think that was a good move, or do you have any thoughts about that pick?
Yeah, that was a real nice move. I think you guys had a mixed draft. Like, I don't think it was bad, but I think there were some like head scratching picks. I think everybody kind of felt that way at the time. Like, running back was definitely a pick you knew was coming, but was it too early? I love the Danny Gray pick. I absolutely love that pick. The Cardinals, I would have loved for the Cardinals to have drafted Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker in round 1. I don't care what people say about first round draft capital for running backs. I really don't care. It's misguided. When there's a running back that's a difference maker like Breece Hall, when there's a guy like Kenneth Walker, these are not just okay running backs. These are potential top 5 to 6 running backs at the NFL level, especially with this changing of the guard that's probably going to happen this year, if not next year at least, where Cook falls out, Derrick Henry falls off, Alvin Kamara might be suspended for half of a season. Who knows? And then what's he look like coming back? These guys have played a while. Running backs have a 4 to 5 year shelf life. I would have rather had the Cardinals draft Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and reached for Danny Gray in round 2. So you guys got an absolute steal in round 3. So Drake Jackson, phenomenal first round pick. Davis Price was a big reach, but I like him. He's a great fit. So it's not a bad pick per se, but I think it was one of those, was the value there? Probably not, but is the fit good? Yeah. Danny Gray, I love that pick. And then as we go down the entire draft, it's, arguable hit and miss. I think you guys did a lot of good damage after the draft, bringing in some guys that you thought you would have drafted, so the Niners overall walk away from unrestricted free agency and the draft huge winners. I think it's a pretty darn good draft overall.
My grade was a B plus, and then keep in mind that's including the UDFAs. I could be that because I did not expect Donovan West to be a damn undrafted free agent out of your state, Arizona State. So, a lot of Niner fans were saying, like, when the draft was going, I saw them in the chats or on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh, the 49ers should get a center. They should get since we didn't get Cam Jurgens. Oh, we should get Donovan West." And for some strange reason, he fell into 49er fans' laps. So, do you have any idea why he did not get drafted? Do you have any insight on that about Donovan West? Yeah.
No, there was a lot of questionable things that happened, and sometimes you find out, a month later, days later. We haven't heard a lot on some of these falls, like Malik Willis, potentially a top 10 pick. There wasn't any sign or indication walking into the draft that he'd fall, and he kept falling. So I wonder what we'll hear maybe later about that. But there were a couple players that fell that was kind of head scratching. But news breaks later on that stuff. Sometimes you never hear why. Sometimes you do.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw my Danny Gray reaction video, but I was pretty hyped up about that pick. It was a 4.5 hour draft show, and I hopped on there I was on there for at least 4 hours and 20 minutes, and way before the pick was made, you could probably hear me say Danny Gray's name a good like 20 or 30 times because I just kept talking about him. So once they finally announced that we drafted him, I just loved it. And then Grant Cohn made a weird comparison. He said that all they did was draft a faster Dante Pettis. I'm like, hold up.
No.
This guy has some dog in him. They said, oh well, he only weighs 186 pounds.
No,
he's a strong 186 pounds, and he's got some fight to him. He's got some toughness. So
yeah, let's not compare him to Pettis. Let's not. That's an insult. Danny Gray, you want a comparison? I'll give you a comparison. This is a kind of like an Antonio Brown meets. Let me think of the best way to describe Danny Gray. Man, like a McLaurin meets Antonio Brown type of combination. He's tough. He's got that potential to be a jet sweep. A wide back type role. I've said this to Raj over and over on the QUADBOX. I think the key to the Niners' success next year, especially with Trey Lance under center, is to use the wide back role with both Danny Gray, or all three of Danny Gray, Ayuk, and Debo equally. If you and people sometimes don't understand the wide back role because their initial reaction is you'll get them hurt. You can't run Danny Gray up the middle, or that's not what wide back is. Wide back is all kinds of things. And you can use the wide back role out wide. You can have Danny Gray step back 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, toss him the ball. He becomes a running back. It counts as a rush on the stat sheet. That's how a lot of Debo's rushes were actually accumulated, was not so much up the gut. It was a 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage toss. You turn him into a running back ahead of time because he's so good with the football. That's the thing that was so amazing about Debo, is you get the ball in Debo's hands sooner than you get the ball in any other wide receiver's hands because of how much more dangerous he is. You trust Debo, and part of this is because of how bad Jimmy G was last year and how bad he is in general. Is Jimmy G, he can only throw so many routes. He can only throw so many places onto the field. You're better off getting the ball in Debo's hands at the line of scrimmage or behind it than to try and deliver it to Debo 15 yards down the field because it won't get there. So that's how Debo's role kind of cultivated. But I think if you continue it on and you diversify, you stop giving Debo runs up the gut. You don't need him going in the A and B gaps and getting hurt. You want Debo to be wide back a lot, not up the gut, but on the outside where he's essentially still a wide receiver. Just because the stat sheet says he ran the ball for 40 yards doesn't mean it wasn't a reception conceptually. He steps back 1 or 2 yards, you toss him the ball. On the stat sheet, it's a run, but he's just turning into a wide receiver right away. He's getting hit by defensive backs. He's not getting hit by linebackers or 2 or 3 offensive linemen piling on him. It does him no, he's not going to get more hurt or suffer, potentially suffer more injuries because he's playing wide receiver, just getting the ball sooner. So you do jet sweeps, you do end arounds, you use all three of Ayuk, who his rookie year looked a lot like Debo. If you watch Ayuk's rookie footage, dude looks like Debo. The way they ran, almost all of Ayuk's like big footage, like highlight reels, are runs when you watch Ayuk's rookie film. Give Ayuk a bunch of wide back roll, give Danny Gray the wide back roll, give Debo the wide back roll. You have a mobile quarterback. You have a running back that's going to average over 5 yards per carry in a much more spread out attack. And now defenses don't know what's coming. Are you going to hand it to Debo? Are you going to hand it to Ayuk? Are you going to have Gray drop back and throw him the ball? Like, it's going to be unreal if Shanahan utilizes all three of them equally in that wide back role.
You took the words right out of my mouth because I was going to mention this whole thing about how Ayuk in his rookie season was getting the ball in jet sweeps and, in those end arounds. And it's, I don't get why I was asking myself the same question, like during the season, like, why isn't I know Debo's great at doing that, but but you can fool the defense even more if you run a second guy at those similar type plays. And shout out to Ray McLeod, who the Niners did pick up. Now, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he has football speed, in my opinion. He's a great runner of the football. He could hold on to the ball a little bit better, but I did see a clip of them running a jet sweep type play with the Steelers where Ray McLeod picked up like 73 yards. So, hey, like you said, diversify it. Why be so predictable?
Yeah, it keeps Debo healthy, and I see Niner by Nature in the chat. Sir,
guys, let me say what's up to a few dudes here really quick.
Yeah,
I got Niner by Nature saying Danny Gray, fire 433 speed. I know I missed somebody else too. No Border Sports, over at No Border Sports, subscribe to them. I collab with them all the time. At the time, I hated the draft. Now I'm cool with it. And go ahead. I believe you're going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say Niner by Nature knows. So I started a phrase, Trey Lance, king of the NFC, and Niner by Nature carries that on everywhere. So I appreciate Niner by Nature.
It's right there.
Yeah, the king of the NFC is what I've been saying about Trey. And when I first said it on the QUADBOX, Raj, Vlad, CMAC, they're all clowning me, saying you can't say that. He has, like, as much as we're excited, you can't say that yet. I'm like, I'm saying it because I look at things from a different angle with a different lens. I'm not about what is someone done. I'm all about what someone going to do. And that just happens to fall in my into my
your repertoire.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say this is the king of the NFC. Now, I do think Brady's still gonna, be right there too. I'm not, delusional that he's the only guy gonna be fighting for this king of the NFC role. But you have, Stafford's not king of the NFC. Stafford's, commanding a very, very well, a real potent offense and amazing defense. They've just got richer. The Rams have got richer. They're definitely the lead dog, I think, in the NFC, seeding game. I put them as the odds-on favorite to be the number one seed in the NFC. But I think Brady, he lost Godwin, who's coming back from injury, so he'll be banged up. There's some reason to believe that I think Aaron Rodgers and Kyler and Brady could all have maybe some, not missteps this year, but lesser seasons, I think, in general than people expect with all the different things going on. There's a lot of chaos going on in Arizona for Kyler. Aaron Rodgers lost Devontae Adams. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to be a great look. It's going to take him some time. And Brady lost AB and Godwin won't be 100% for a little bit. So Trey really could be the best quarterback in the NFC by the end of the year. And it's going to sound really dumb to a lot of people. It's going to sound really crazy. So yeah, I think that one guy here, this is a Jimmy G fan, is going to hate this, but Trey has all of the weapons to be handheld. Like if Jimmy can be carried, and Jimmy did the carrying, Jimmy didn't carry the team. The team carried Jimmy. Everyone knows that knows football. If the team can carry Jimmy G into an NFC championship situation, guess what? Trey Lance, if he needs his hand held once in a while, will be able to do the same thing. But guess what? Trey has the capability of carrying the entire team on his back too. Because let me ask you, Bash, when it was 4th and 2 in that NFC championship game, who did you want to go into the game? Debo or probably Trey, right? Didn't you think?
I would love to have that. Yeah, I would love to have them.
Would you have put it all on the line with Trey? I would have.
I would. You know what? If I saw what I saw in practice and I was confident with him, yes. And when I heard he was looking great in practice and he looked pretty damn good in that Texans game. So
yeah, and even in the preseason game, what was it? The Raiders game.
The Raiders game. Oh yeah.
Look phenomenal. Like he had a rough first half, right? And then he comes in, makes up for it, learns from his mistakes, has a great second half. Trey knows how to score the football. He has a nose for the end zone. He has a nose for big
excellent
plays
in the end zone.
And
in the red
20,
zone.
I mean, as much as people want to clown on this man's competition at the college level, you don't trip and fall into 42 total touchdowns and 0 INTs with 14 of them rushing touchdowns. What that tells me is this man makes amazing split decisions. He makes great tuck and run decisions, because if he didn't, he would have interceptions. They were counting down every time a game would happen. They would not talk about it in the Trey Lance household. His mother would bring it up, and everybody would be like, be quiet, don't mention interceptions, because they wanted to continue the streak on because it was such an amazing thing. Everyone was amped about this thing. The fact that this kid with that pressure kept going and not throwing an INT, he's the guy you want under center. And let me tell you another thing. This might not settle well with some people watching, because this sounds like an attack on the Niners, but it's not. It's I'm going to circle back around. But I don't think that Kyle is a good coach right now. I think he could get there. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's a good offensive coordinator. I think he's an amazing offensive coordinator. He's a great mind. He's a genius. He's an offensive genius. But he's not a great coach. And he's got a lot to learn. He's stubborn. He doesn't know how to make quarterback personnel decisions. He doesn't know how to commit once he's going down a certain road, like with Trey. He has botched quarterback after quarterback after quarterback situation, from passing on Brady and calling him marginally better than Jimmy G, which is that's almost a firing offense. Like that was absolutely horrible analysis right there. And from Watson to Mahomes, just over and over and over. But let me tell you something. Once Trey Lance is in there, Trey Lance is going to help remedy most of the problems that are created by Shanahan. What does Shanahan do? He takes his foot off the gas when he needs to put his foot down on the gas in games and lets games slip through his grasp. What can Jimmy do on that? Nothing. Jimmy's got to run the play that Kyle calls, even when Kyle takes his foot off the gas, because he can't improvise. What can Trey do? Trey can audible out of that or tuck and run and make things happen for himself. Trey Lance will be the best thing that's ever happened to Kyle Shanahan. He will get Kyle Shanahan out of 75, 80% of the messes and situations that he typically can get himself in, because he can't have a quarterback that can get him out of it. And the great part is, half of us won't even know when it's happening. We'll just credit it to Shanahan when Trey gets him out of a bad play call or situation or a bad game script. This is going to be unbelievable, and I can't wait for people to experience it. I can't wait for some of the haters, like the Prius guy. I'll welcome him with open arms once he's back on the Trey Lance wagon, or once he gets on it. And I know he will. I'm very anxious to know what his explanation will be when Trey looks like fire, because it's going to be hard. If you're a Niner fan, you're going to get on board. You're not going to push back and never get on the Trey Lance wagon. If Trey Lance is absolute fire, if he wants to leave a message, I'm really interested as to what his response.
I know him personally, so I'll hear from him one way or the other, and I'll let you know what he says. So I wanted to ask you, speaking of quarterbacks, so we're on the quarterback track. I left out a quarterback that we drafted. We drafted a quarterback, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, that is, with the final pick in the entire NFL draft. I actually liked a lot of what I saw from 2020, me personally. But what's your take on the 49ers selecting him? What do you think about that? Your opinion on his skill set, and you think it's a good pick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good pick. It makes you wonder if the team is expecting to maybe cut Jimmy once he's healthy. Certainly a possibility. It definitely makes you wonder a little bit. I think ultimately, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I don't think Jimmy will probably get cut. There's a percentage, like a 20% chance they'll cut him. Like Bill Belichick did it with Cam Newton, and Cam Newton had a pretty good offseason or preseason too. They just cut him. He wanted the distraction gone. The problem is, I think that Kyle feels, and he's not wrong in theory to think like this, but he's wrong because of the way that he treats Jimmy. And I don't want him tempted to use him if Trey gets banged up. Let's say in the third preseason game, he gets banged up and Jimmy goes out there, and all of a sudden Jimmy's practicing for a couple weeks. But then in week one, they're both ready to go. I'm afraid of what Shanahan's capable of doing. That's why I want him removed from the equation. But again, like I said, I have very little doubt that Trey's going to blow Jimmy out of the water, like just completely make this laughable a year from today. But I do think that Shanahan, back to the question, I like Purdy. I think it's a sign that maybe there's some temptation to cut Jimmy, but I think ultimately Shanahan feels comfortable with Jimmy G in there for 4, 5, 6 games, even though we all are just going to go nuts if it happens. But I think that even the fan base will, if for any reason Trey was out 4 or 5 games, I think the fan base would be like, okay, well, Jimmy knows our offense. Maybe we are okay with him for 4 or 5 games. It's a smart move on paper. It's just, will there be any kind of temptation that derails Trey's progress? If Shanahan could vow to me and swear and write a contract out that I will not start Jimmy G unless Trey Lance is medically and not capable of playing the game, I would actually think it's a decent idea, because you've got a guy that you can carry. He won't carry you. Let's make that clear. You can carry into a win. So I think that's what Shanahan's going to do. If I could choose, I would say I'd rather just ride with Trey and not worry about injury, and just say we're gonna make this work. And if Purdy had to come in, then you develop him, whatever, or Sudfeld, whatever. It'll be okay. Get rid of Jimmy. That's what my choice would be, but I think Shanahan will keep him.
Okay, yeah, love the answer. 49er Tone is in the building. Longtime 49er content creator, says, "What's up, my brother? I've been wanting to reach out to you. I didn't get to talk to you about the draft, man." He says, "Much love, fam, and go Niners. Happy Mother's Day to your wife, by the way. I'm good to hear from you, brother. Miss you, man." Yeah, we were talking about you mentioned wide receivers, and I forgot to mention that we picked up 2 undrafted wide receivers. One of them I stood out to me, at least personally, was Pittsburgh wide receiver Taysier Mack. He obviously went undrafted, but I saw him do some things that look pretty good on tape. Do you think him or the other guy that we picked up might have a chance to make the 7th receiver spot or 6th receiver spot, which is Tay Martin from Oklahoma State?
I suppose, but it's tough to say. I think we got to see how a lot of these guys get cut. You think they're good pickups and they just get cut, but I think it's a little too early to tell. Neither one was jumping out on my scouting.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay.
Not feeling it. I loved Gray though, man.
I love Gray. Yeah. Okay, so you did mention that the 49ers offensive line's style of blocking their schemes will possibly change, or will definitely change with Trey Lance. Obviously, he's the quarterback. Let's just assume Jimmy's not in the picture, but we've been talking about Jimmy and Trey and all that. But so we picked up a lot of. I noticed the offensive linemen we picked up, the guys we picked up, especially Donovan West and Spencer Burford. Spencer Burford, especially him, actually, he's a pretty mobile guy, and that's the guy they drafted in the 4th round, and then they had actually signed Jason Poe from Mercer, and he's a really mobile type guard, and they even showed him running routes and his catch-up passes. I mentioned Donovan West earlier, and I see these as kind of like, they're not the biggest offensive linemen, but they're those athletic type guys that Kyle likes to bring in, smaller type dudes in comparison to offensive line. But are you familiar with these offensive linemen? We also picked up Zakelj, I believe, Nick Zakelj.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's not a bad prospect. I like Burford a little bit too. My honest take on this is that there are certain teams that draft talent, and then there's certain teams that coach up talent and at certain positions. And the Niners are just one of those teams that you got to leave it and trust in them, even if it doesn't look great. And you wonder, wait, what are we going to do here? We heard the same thing about, the defense all year last year, and it got progressively better. And you guys traditionally don't address cornerbacks at all, because you coach it up and you're all about rushing the quarterback and then, developing those corners. So I think the same thing with the line. When you got a line that pulls and has so much like misdirection and such, I think that sometimes the way, I guess I would say the way, the Niner way would be to find players and have them learn to do things like a certain way versus, pulling in some massively elite talent. It's just, it just seems to be the way that it goes for you guys with the offensive line and cornerbacks. And I think you just got to trust the process. But I think there's some real winners that you potentially got in these guys. I think Burford especially could be pretty good. Definitely drafted him high, 4th round. So you clearly believe in him. But I think Trey Lance being mobile will also help out the offensive line production immediately. Like, that spreads the defense out. When you got to worry about where Trey is on the field at all times defensively, you're gonna have less stacked boxes. You're gonna have less box counts in general. And so I think Trey is going to just spread the defense out, and almost create not a false sense of offensive line improvement, but like, think about it when in the Kurt Warner days, when Kurt Warner came to Arizona, we had a real bad offensive line, but his quick release and the spread out offense made that a non-issue from that point forward. Like, we addressed the offensive line, but the offensive line all of a sudden became insanely productive. And it was just because it was almost like not a facade, but a totally different offense that made it to where there was less pressure all the time. I mean, Kurt Warner got hit from time to time. He ended up having to step away from the game because he's worried about getting concussions. But in general, productivity was absolutely, fine. They were able to facilitate the football down the field all day long. No problem whatsoever. So I do think Trey alone is going to be a huge, huge offensive line help. And then you just got to hope and trust that everybody else gets coached up. And I think it will. I think it'll work out. And then has there been an announcement on Mac yet?
There hasn't. I believe he skipped some voluntary workout though, or there was some workout that he skipped, I believe. And if you skip that workout, they fine you $100,000 of some sort, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat if anybody knows that. I heard that from Jay in the Bay. So, but if that's the case, that does kind of tell you that maybe he retired then, because why would we just let $100,000?
Yeah,
just go away like that. I know he just got married too, though, so maybe he needs the free time.
Yeah. My guess is based on not addressing center in the draft that there's some kind of inside track on him coming back. And if you critique and look at the two press conferences back to back, the one that said that he got married and we're going to let him announce, his decision that's personal and up to him. And then the next one right after, I believe it was after day one of the draft, the tone was different. It was like, we're in communication with him. I think open line of communication with him or whatever. And you're like, oh, this is a totally different tone. My guess is that Mac is on his way back, but he's still wavering. So, he could change his mind, but I think the Niners know something. And he's like, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to be married. I'm going to enjoy myself, and barring any kind of, different, change in circumstance, I'll be back. Who knows? I mean, I don't know about the fine. That fine could be telling. But definitely feel like you guys probably know something there. That's why you didn't address it. And the moment he's back, if he does return, even though that's a 1-year fix, I think people feel so much better about the offensive line just from that one piece of news, So things are going to be good, man. You guys think about this. You got Debo, Ayuk, Gray, awesome running back stable led by Mitchell, but you've got Sermon potentially looking quicker than ever. And then you got this Price kid who's very, very, very fitting for the offense in your ability to use him and Mitchell at the same time. They don't conflict. Their styles of play don't conflict. So you'd want to ground and pound with Price. You want to run Mitchell a lot up the gut too, but he's such a speedster that you get him, use him like in a Mostert role in a way, but still feed him a lot up the middle. Like your offense is completely fired. That's not even mentioning Kittle. Like if Kittle is sent out more on routes instead of blocking all the time, and with the offensive line issues, you wonder if he will be blocking more than ever. But I mean, this offense is going to be electric, man. It's going to be fun to watch. I don't think the draft hampered you guys at all. And I think that this team with Debo feels a lot stronger than without it. And I think once people settle on that Debo's here, once that contract is inked and signed, I think everybody's going to feel real good about what they have right now. But people were bleak a month ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They had a bleak outlook because, you were picturing this thing without Debo, and it was going to ride a lot different without him.
Yeah, the mock draft shows were lasting a lot longer than expected because we were doing 2 drafts, one with Debo, one without Debo. So it's just pretty crazy. This guy has like the coolest name. I don't think I know this guy in real life or on Twitter or anything, but I love the name. Alfonso Bonzo says, what's up in the 49er minded crowd? I've seen you on here a couple other times before. I just want to shout you out, bro. Thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody who watches the show, by the way. So, and I love the action in the chat. Later, when I have a chance to catch up with the show later and read the chat, I'll definitely check you guys out.
You know what I don't understand though, Bash, is why there's such clashing going on. I know it's always kind of been that way.
It's always like that on my show. It's always like that on my show. They're always going back and forth.
But it's not just your show. It's in like when we do a
Twitter,
show,
everywhere.
There's like, and the Jimmy G supporters are definitely smaller than the Trey Lance supporters, and they're just louder. But it's crazy to me that the people that are pro Jimmy G aren't also just pro Trey. Like it's really weird to me. And like I always say to Raj and the guys, like, what's going to happen, like in the chat here, for those that are just dead set against Trey? what's going to happen when Trey balls out and you're on Team Jimmy? Are you just going to root against Trey? Are you just hoping for an injury so Jimmy could come back in? Like, I don't really understand.
So they can be right. Like, oh, I hope Trey sucks, so I could be right. It's like a stupid way to think.
And that's what it is. I have a psych degree, so I bring a lot of psychology to my fantasy football show and to all the news that I break and stuff, and I break things down. And really, what it is it's a version of different things. But one of the things that you could look at would be called sunk cost fallacy, where you just throw more bad or more good after bad because you don't want to be wrong. So it's like you say something like Trey's going to bust, and then instead of recalibrating your thinking and being like, okay, you know what, I've looked at it some more. I know I said some harsh things on a live, but guys, I'm on the Trey bandwagon now. And then the Trey people actually probably welcome you with open arms.
Of course.
Instead, it's like, I have to be right, or everything I said beforehand is going to make me look like a fool. So you throw more good at bad, and you just start doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down. And then before you know it, you're hating on Trey Lance, and you don't even know why. And you put it on so thick, the hate. There's no point of returning back the other way. You can't turn around. You've laid it on so thick that you're stuck, and you just keep sunk costs. It's like a project, like somebody's work or employment, where there's a project where you've sunk, $100,000 into this part of the sector of the business. And it's like, you've already sunk 100,000. You better keep going. When somebody goes, it's not going to work, you need to pull the cord and not spend any more bad money. But the people are like, no, just keep doing it, because we've already spent 100,000. We've all done that in our lives too, where you go in a certain amount, you just keep going and going and going and going. That's what it is, really. That's what it is. If you're bashing Trey Lance to such a degree, it is 100% a version of sunk cost fallacy, and it's a psychological thing. And otherwise you just be okay with both. You'd be like, I like Jimmy. You guys are a little hard on Jimmy. I love him. If he starts, he's gonna be great, but I still love Trey. But no, it's not. I hate Trey's gonna bust.
The psychological perspective. I dig that. I missed this guy's name earlier. He said I am Team Trey. He tried Tracy on accident. But that's Nighthawk. If you don't know who he is, he's a legend from the Rombo show. Nighthawk Afterburner's his screen name on here. He'd be a legend in these YouTube streets. So I just want to say what's up to him. Mariah says some of the Trey haters are racist. I think some of them are. I hate, not most of them, but it's out there. It sucks, but it's out there. David McNews here. Where's he at, man? I know he's always in the chat saying something. He says Jimmy G will be cut because no NFL team wants him. Go Trey Lance. Hashtag 49ers for life. Cut Jimmy G. Okay. And Alfonso Bonzo said something funny. Where's he at, man? He dropped some funny comment. He said, to be honest, Bash, you'd rather be right than root for Jimmy. You said you were boycotting Subway. I might have said it on my show. I gotta go back. I know I mentioned the commercial, but for the record, I haven't had a Subway sandwich in years. I'm over Jersey, Mike Scar. There's a local deli called Sourdough Company over here in Roseville, in the Sacramento area, in the Bay Area. They have that, so check them out. They don't pay me, but I did love their sandwiches. What's up, Andy Land? He says everyone wants to be the one to say I told you so. Of course. Hey, let me before we go, I just want to talk about your little since you're this fantasy football guy, how you got started with that a little bit, because I believe you've been you were the DJ or the main guy on the fantasy football radio show, the host with ABC and CBS for a long time, and tell everybody about that.
Yeah, so like in 2003, roughly, so it's been over 20 years. I was asked to join as a co-host on a fantasy football radio show back in 2003. At that time, it had been out for 6 or 7 years. So this show had run for over 23 straight years. It ended during COVID, unfortunately, just through cutting costs and stuff with those that put it on, but and some of the money people involved. But it was the longest running fantasy football radio show in the world. I think to this day, it holds the record for 23 straight years. I was a part of it 19 straight years. So I started in 2003 as a co-host on that show, and so I did it straight up to 2020. So did it for 17-18 straight years, and did it did some spots on it beforehand, not as a full-time co-host or anything like that. So I did that for years. I was on CBS and NBC Sports Radio, would bounce back and forth depending on the contract, but done that. I've hosted Cardinal shows with I was on the I did spot segments on there with the Sam Macho show. I don't know if you know who Sam
I know
Macho
Sam.
is.
Oh yeah, Sam Macho. Of
Yeah,
course.
so he did a Cardinal show, and so we do a segment on that show and do a
Nice.
fantasy segment on that show. So I've done a lot of those types of things, but that's how I got into businesses in the radio game. But I've been creating content for fantasy football trade. I invented the instant trade calculator in fantasy football in 2003, the mock draft simulator, instant mock draft simulator in 2003. So I got into the business because I got tired of people not talking about football year round, especially fantasy football, but football year round. The Super Bowl would end and then people would go dormant until July or June. And I'd be like, I want to talk about football now. Nobody wanted to. Everyone's like, just take a break. So that's how I got into the business to begin with. And then from there, it just, I've been doing it professionally for over right around 20 years now. And again, it's not just fantasy, it's football analysis, the scouting, the radio shows, all that stuff. And I enjoy it, man. I couldn't think of a better job. About 3 years ago, I got on YouTube and started my YouTube show, the Fantasy Football Show on YouTube, which you can find at youtube.com/the Fantasy Football Show. But that I started out about 3 years ago. And really the video part of my business is only about 3 years old, but that's taken over pretty much everything. So now I've morphed everything into that. I mean, I do written content still. It's a big bread and butter part of my business at sleeperu.com, like university. So I got a lot of hats that I wear, but it's all under one, umbrella.
That's awesome that, hey, you can do what you love and get paid for it, and be your own boss.
Yeah. I mean, I can't complain. It's a rough lifestyle at the same time. Like I know a lot of people think it's an easy, like, oh, I could do that. Or, anybody could, if they put their energy into it and tried to hone in on their craft and just, become better and better at it. It's not an easy thing. I mean, just by doing video, how hard it is, how much time goes into it. I produce, at least one video a day, and I go live Monday through Friday. So it's a commitment. It's a huge commitment, but it's my job. I enjoy it. Just documenting, like even on my Instagram, I love Instagram as much as I love YouTube in some ways, because YouTube's like the business side of me, and then Instagram's like the personal side of me. So, stories, my whole day, like where I'm going for lunch, all that stuff goes on my Instagram. And so, I've got different groups of people that follow for different reasons. And it's awesome when you start seeing all those things come together, for one show.
Yeah, this guy does it all, man. So it's cool to hear that. And I remember you were telling me a while back that you invented something. So it's good that you brought up the trade calculator. It's the fantasy trade calculator it's called?
Yeah. So I got tired of like having nobody there. Cause like I said, when I was in 2000 to 2001, about that time, I was looking for content. I was a regular just fantasy football consumer. And, the internet started booming then. There were a few fantasy football sites out there. I didn't dream that I would create one back in 1999 to 2001, but I was consuming it. And I was tired of, like I said, nobody having year-round content. I wanted rankings up 365 days a year. I wanted a site where I could come and get trade advice. And so I developed a instant trade calculator where you literally click on, multiple players or one player from each side, and it would tell you phrases. Now I give you percent, like a dollar amount percentage and stuff. I've definitely improved it over the years. But back then, my first trade calculator would say, what in the like hell are you thinking? Don't do this trade. Or that would be like 1 degree. And then it would say, I would do it. And then it'd be like, don't do that, or yet, there'd be different levels to it. But I created that in 2002, 2003. And I have an innovative mind. So I'm always trying to create and innovate. And part of that's my own curiosity and desire, but it's also part of me trying to solve problems. If there's something out there that's not being done, like the way that my video shows are, basically, no one's trying to deliver content the way that I deliver it. So I take pride in that and passion in that, having a fun, interactive show that I think makes people, when they watch it, like, damn, I had fun. Like Niner by Nature, it doesn't even play fantasy football. And Niner by Nature is pretty much in every show. Absolutely loves it because I'm talking football constantly. I'm not just talking fantasy football. I'll touch on that a lot, especially on my post-production uploads. They'll be very fantasy geared, but like in my live streams, a lot of it's just breaking news. You know, there'll be 4 or 5, 6 news topics, and it's like boom. And the one thing I take pride on, and this is the last thing I'll say, I'm talking my ear off here. Apologize. Is when news breaks, I go live. I fire up this studio here and I go live. So I take pride in people knowing, like, let's say let's say Cooper Kupp signs an extension tomorrow, that people go, oh my God, what's that mean for, oh, I know where I can go. Smitty's live right now. And then boom, I'm live. I'm live 2-3 minutes after something like that breaks. So that's in addition to my Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern live stream. So I'm dedicated to it. And to answer your first question, or to address what you said, it's hard. It is hard because, I mean, you don't think my family, you know, isn't waiting up for me, and then I walk out and everybody's asleep and no one's had dinner yet. You know, like you sacrifice a lot to do what I do. And, you know, you're not always the most liked person in your household when you're constantly on shows. So I do a lot of disappointing outside of these doors. And you know, so.
Hey, well, if you tell them we love you and we love them, so
it's Mother's Day,
and that makes it feel any better.
Mother's Day, and I'm doing it live.
There you go. Hey, same here. All right, so we got really quick. I could not let this comment go. Mariah, just shots fired right here. So Subway has always been trash. Now it has a perfect mascot. So Mariah, just shots fired right there by Mariah.
Yeah, look, people say I'm a Jimmy like hater. I'm not a Jimmy hater. I don't hate Jimmy. Jimmy did a lot for the organization during a very special period when he helped kind of like when things were bleak, turn things around. But there's a difference between acknowledging what Jimmy is now and what he was pre-ACL. And I think that a lot of people like to hang on to that pre-ACL Jimmy, or even people bash that hang on to the pre-2021 Jimmy, the one that didn't have the thumb injury and the shoulder injury. When you hear somebody say somebody's bound to trade for Jimmy, it's like they ignore that he has 2 injuries. That one, the thumb, was supposed to have surgery when we first heard about it. He played on it, and now we haven't heard anything about it. It's going to heal naturally. How do we know that's not going to cause a problem because he didn't have the surgery? Like, Jimmy's not the same guy, you know, pre-ACL, and he's not even the same guy pre-2021 injuries, the two of them. So, like, I understand where the passion is. I actually appreciate the passion. Where I think people should maybe relook at their angle is when they let their passion for Jimmy G and supporting him invade the desire to watch Trey Lance succeed, because he is your future. Whether you like it or not, you mortgage the future for it. And if you don't get behind Trey, how are you going to feel good about this team in general, especially if Trey fails? Like, how are you going to feel good about that? Get behind him. Get behind him. He is the future. He's here. It's happening. And you can either be along for the ride now, or you can try and talk yourself into why you need to get on board late, because it's not going to feel good to be jumping on board late.
You got that right. Let me say, before we close this out, I want to say what's up to TL. Says, what's up, fam? He's over on the 49er Faithful Elite podcast with Mariah. Great dude, very knowledgeable. Had him on the show. Conscious Raza's here. Javier, good buddy of mine from my San Jose days, says, thank goodness for Prius game. He helps keep it cracking here. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can disagree with him all you want, but the chat is just burning up on fire each time he's in here, and everybody going back and forth.
Yeah.
Tons of fun on here. Anyways, I'm super, super happy that you were able to come on today, Smitty. I know it's Mother's Day, a lot of family stuff going on. Any last things you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, man. I expect some news to kind of kick into gear this week. It's been pretty quiet lately. I think some, potential Debo buzz will kick around. I think people start making up stuff. There's so many people with a per source out there. I've done a bunch of spoofs on that stuff on Twitter and such to kind of make fun of the per source stuff. And everybody's trying to, what I'll tell people is that if somebody out there you've never heard of is trying to drop a per source, but they won't give you the source, they don't know. The most likely they don't know anything different than the average person. They're doing some guesswork to try and make a name for themselves. You're going to hear from a big name source when something's, coming down in terms of a Debo deal. There's people that have tried to say that maybe a trade could still happen and Debo still wants to be traded. Like, just let it all play out. Debo's he's going to be a Niner in 2022. He's going to sign a deal very similar, if not exactly, really, really close to AJ Brown's deal. The only things that could throw a monkey wrench in that are maybe like a Cooper Kupp extension, a DK Metcalf extension, and a McLaurin extension. All three of them getting such a high dollar amount that it changes the game for Debo, and then Debo's like, I want more. But right now, that's where the Niners are not thinking clearly by not re-signing them now while you have control of those benchmarks. The money amounts are pretty much locked in. His agent is going to say, look, Debo, AJ Brown just got the same deal. You got to take it. And if you let Cooper Kupp and everybody else drive it up, it's going to create more drama and buzz. So I think we'll hear some Debo stuff. Some of it will be fabricated. I think you'll, of course, hear other rumors around the NFL. I think one of those extensions might come down. Cooper Kupp's could come very soon. And maybe there's some more craziness to happen this week. So I'm hoping. I want some news. I don't necessarily want disasters, but I want some news to report on because it was a little quiet lately.
Yeah. But great point, because they better jump on it as soon as possible, because AJ Brown set the market with the new contract, and just get it low with. Again, yeah. Smitty, thanks. It's been awesome. Thanks to all the people in the chat. If I missed your name, I try to say everybody's name. Sorry if I missed your name, guys, but I definitely appreciate all of you guys. Thank you guys for watching 49er Minded, where we get into the minds of 49er fans. So keep repping those 49ers and stay 49er minded. Peace. Come on, 49er faithful, let's get it.
Because it's 49er mind.
We gotta do this one time for the Empire.
It's 49er mind. It's 49er mind.
We gotta get that brick by brick real quick.
49er mind.
Yeah. Yo, we can't listen to them haters, man.
49er mind.
We from the Bay.
49er mind.
We them San Francisco 49ers.
49er mind.
We got that red and gold blood inside us.
49er mind.